All right, well, I do have a question that someone submitted about a 6-liter diesel out there. So if you have a Power Stroke diesel and you're kind of curious about how it works and why it doesn't work and what makes things do what it does, maybe you can learn something from this. The 6-liter diesel, that is the replacement of the 7.3 diesel, which to me was probably one of the most bulletproof engines that International had designed to put in Ford trucks. The 7.3, the 6.0, the 6.4 are International engines. Those engines are made by International. The 6.7 is Ford's own design engine that they made by Ford, and that's the one that they take credit for. They're not real happy about the 6.0s or the 6.4s, but there's a lot of people out there that have those 6.0s and 6.4s out there, and they're good, and there's some bad with them. But here, the bad is that they ain't easy to work on. That's the bad. They got lots of sensors. That's the other thing that's bad. But they do fall. That's why they made those, was to meet emission standards. That's exactly why. That's why they put EGR valves on it and all this stuff right here. And that's why people take them back off and try to do EGR deletes and all this stuff. And that just make my head hurt thinking about all the things they do. But the question is, when my car is cold, my truck is cold, it starts fine. I have no problem whatsoever. But when the car is hot, operating temperature, I've been driving it, I park it, and I shut it off, and if I come back 5 minutes later, it will crank and crank and crank and crank and crank and will not start. Will not start, will not start. I've taken it to a shop, they've told me, and they have changed the high pressure pump. That's very important. They've changed the ICP, that's the injection control pressure, injector control pressure, that makes sure it controls the amount, that reads the amount of pressure, that the oil pressure. We're going to get the oil pressure in a minute to make these Power Strokes run. And we have what's called injector pressure regulator. Okay, those two things right there, how it works is this. You have high pressure oil. You got an oil pump that runs 50 to 100 psi when you crank the car. And it sends that high pressure oil, it goes up to, that low pressure oil to a high pressure pump. That high pressure pump takes it from 50, 60 pounds up to 3,000-4,000 psi. That's oil pressure. I mean, what? Honest to goodness, that's what helps fire the injectors. And so they have this oil pressure up there. 7.3 works the same way. 7.3 works just like this, and so does the 6.0. You use this oil pressure. 7.3 is just a lot easier. The 6.0 had this oil pressure manifold up there that it closes that intake, that IPR. When you crank the car, it's open. When you crank it, it closes it, making the oil pressure build up to you want it over 700 psi. If it doesn't reach 700 psi, the engine's not going to start. It has to have 700 psi to start. So if they've changed the high pressure pump, they tell me, they've changed the IPR, the pressure regulator, injector pressure regulator that controls the amount of oil pressure on it by closing or opening. And then you have a sensor that reads the amount of pressure on there that would all it's doing just reading. It's not doing anything more than just reporting. Yes, I'm at 600 psi, I'm at 400 psi, I'm at 1200 psi, and then the computer makes a decision to open or close the IPR, the injector pressure regulator. Well, that is what we're seeing happening on this car. They put it in there and the car doesn't want to run. And so how do you go about correcting this problem? Well, it's kind of hard to, this is one of the toughest ones out there. This is a 2003 6-liter engine, and the IPR is in the same place they always are. They're right there on the, in the back of the engine, pain in the butt to get to. But on this 2003, the IPC, the intake pressure controller, or intake pressure control that tells about actual pressure, is right beside it in the very back of the engine, hard to get to. On later model cars like the 2004 and 5, they're on the valve cover, real easy to get to. Well, while I'm telling you this is because what you've got to do is remove that IPC, that injector pressure control. What that's actually reading, remove that, put a fitting in it that you can put compressed air to. Because you got to do this when the car's not running, and you got to listen. You got to listen for noise, for air that's leaking. What I suspect is either A, the pump they put in there is faulty. I've seen that happen. Brand new pump go in there, not any good whatsoever. Honest. I've seen that. I hate when that happens. 2, you've got a problem with the snap connectors. These are the quick connectors on the high pressure pump. They're leaking. I've seen that happen. 3, you've got a problem with the IPR. It's not regulating like it's supposed to. It's stuck, or so you can look at that on the scanner and tell what's going on. 4, something called dummy plugs. Yeah, I know they don't talk much about those, but they're like plugs that go down into the heads, and they got a rubber O-ring on the bottom of them that helps maintain oil pressure up there. And if they get a leak in them, the pressure will leak down when the car is hot and will not maintain that 700 psi to fire it up when it's hot because the oil's thinned out. I've seen simple little O-rings cause this problem. So what we've done is, while the car is cold, we've got compressed air in it. Now, you don't have to have a scanner. If you have a scanner, it's wonderful. It really is. If you got a scanner, you can go and bidirectionally control the IPR and close it and see where listen to where the air is leaking. The air is either leaking from the snap connectors in the back of the engine, where they hook to the high pressure pump. That's one area they could be leaking. So you listen for noise. They can be leaking at the IPR because it's not opening or closing like it's supposed to, which can happen. But normally what we hear is, wherever the leak is, like the dummy plugs. We'll hear a sss. Wherever that hissing is, that's where our leak is. And we do it with air because it's kind of hard to do with oil when the engine's running because you can't hear it. So we use compressed air, about 150 psi, and we go up to that IPR and we close that IPR. You can take it and just ground the IPR there's two wires going to the IPR. Intake pressure. You got a ground and you got power. Well, when you go up there, you're going to see, unplug it on the IPR. One of them is going to be hot with the key on. Okay, don't touch that wire with the ground wire. So the other wire is what the computer gives the ground to close it. It completes the circuit. So what I want you to do is, you find the wire that's hot. That's great. The other wire, you're going to put a pin in it to back probe it and plug it back in. And when you put the compressed air to it, take you a jumper wire and ground with the key on and ground it to that. You just bump it to where it closes all the way up, and you can hear the sound go away from the IPR. That hissing sound will go away. It'll go shh, and it'll go away. If it is, you don't hear any hissing sound any place, and you're still having problems cranking it, and the IPC sensor is not faulty, you get to pull the injection pump out and replace it again if that's the problem. But in most cases, it's not that. It's the snap connectors, which means you got to pull it back apart to get down there to the pump because they didn't put them together right, or the dummy plugs, which are in the head. They love to leak too. They really, really do. These are some of the things that I have seen that have happened over the years. So when people own diesels, sometimes I wonder why they own diesels, because they're work trucks. They're designed to work. They're not designed to be really super economical. They're just designed to be very powerful and to do the job for pulling and towing and things like that. And and some people buy them, they don't really need to have diesels, and they end up buying these things and go, man, why did I buy this headache? Well, they require maintenance. You've got to use, one of the things I can tell you on a Power Stroke engine that people don't do, not the 7.3, but because the 7.3, that's a different story. I mean, you can get away with putting Napa oil filters on it, and Napa air filters, and Napa this and Napa that. You try that on a 6.0 or a 6.4 or a 6.7, you won't have that engine much longer. You must use Motorcraft parts, such as Motorcraft oil filters, Motorcraft fuel filters. The reason is they're different. The Motorcraft oil filters are an 1/8 inch longer than the aftermarket. That's right. So they don't bypass as easy as the aftermarket does. That's one on the oil filter. They do a much better job. A oil filter, a factory one will last about 5,000 to 6,000 miles, before it goes into bypass. Where an aftermarket one, you're lucky to get 3 before it goes into bypass mode. So that means you're driving around 3,000 miles with unfiltered oil. That helps kill an engine, especially a Power Stroke. Number 2 out there, the biggest thing that kills it is fuel filters out there. There's a teeny tiny little bleed hole that's about the size of a needle hole in the Motorcraft fuel filter that's patented. That little bitty hole, you could actually take an aftermarket one if you wanted to and do the same thing yourself, but that little bleed hole is what allows that filter to purge itself of air, so the whole filter functions and filters fuel. If not, you're only going to use half the filter will function. You'll have a big bubble of air in the fuel filter, which can cause hard starting, not saying it will, can cause hard starting, and can shorten the life of your fuel filter. You should change your fuel filter every 10,000 miles. People go, what? Yeah, I know that sounds like a lot, but every 10,000 miles on a diesel is, that's a year. Most people, that's about a year. Some people in trucks out there, that's about every month or two they do 10,000 miles. Those are what they're used for. But change your fuel filter, and every time you change your oil, service the water filter, the water separator. There's a water separator that never ever gets looked at on these things, and when I do finally get them looked at, or there's a problem with them, I pull them apart and they're so corroded and so messed up that I have to go out and buy that $700 canister to replace it, because I can't even take it apart. I can't fix it. I can't service it. So, $700 to $1,000 to fix that, because people don't bother doing the maintenance on draining the water out of it. So those are just 2 or 3 of the things that need to be looked at and worked on. But when you for as maintenance, but when you've got one that will crank when it's cold, and it's a power stroke, but when it turns over when it's hot, it won't start. It's an oil pressure problem of some sort. Honest to goodness, it's not me coming up with it. It has to have a minimum of 600 psi to work. This car holds around 16 quarts, this engine, not just truck, holds around 16 quarts of oil. It does, it holds that much oil. It really does. The 7.3 and the 6.0 hold a lot of oil. And you've got to make sure you have the right filters, the right oil, and do it right. If you don't use the right filters, you shorten the life of that high pressure oil pump considerably. That's what I was talking about earlier by not using Motorcraft filters. If you don't use a Motorcraft oil filter, you're going to kill that high pressure pump in short order. You really will. The average price for putting in a high pressure pump is about $3,000. I'll tell you what, and that's really too cheap for the amount of money and amount of time it takes to do. They're a pain in the butt. And the best way to do it is remove the cab. That's the best way. And what happens, that way you can check your work out, get everything done. You can pressurize everything with air before you put it all together, and you can see what's going on. Now, a lot of people go, well, that's a lot of money. Yeah, it's a lot of work to do on this car. It takes about 8 hours for me to pull the cab off and put it back on. 1 full day to pull the cab off and put it back on. And the other day, well, I take it off, then we take the cab off, then we work the rest of that day working on the car, and the following morning finishing it up, and then we put it back together the second day. But I'm just saying, it takes a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort to work on these diesels. People ask me all the time, what kind of diesel would you recommend I buy? And I said, well, a lot of it depends on the kind of work you're going to do with it. But if you wanted to buy a diesel, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, of all the diesel engines I work on less, I'd say the one I work on the least amount would be a Dodge Cummins. Now, I got some people out there that are probably going to hit the ceiling on that one. But Dodge Cummins are pretty darn good. They really, really are. And I don't do much work on them. They don't tear up that badly. Well, some of the 6.0s, 6.4s, hadn't seen too many 6.7s, but 6.0s, 6.4s, see a lot of. Duramaxes, see a lot of. Don't see that many Cummins coming in here, but they're pretty darn good trucks out there. Anyway, this is James Morris. We got about 30 seconds left. The phone's ringing. I'll probably have to get them off the air. But if you got a car question, give us a call, 850-763-0555, Monday through Friday, right here on WPGX Fox 28, your Master Auto Technician channel. We'll be back tomorrow morning right here on Fox 28. Bye-bye, everybody. Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower, and toilet emergency drain services.
All right, welcome back to this special edition show right here. Got someone calling. I've got Preston with a 1998 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Preston, what's your question about your Jeep Cherokee, sir?
Okay, my vehicle, it jumps while I'm accelerating.
Mm-hmm.
What could be the problem?
What's it doing when you're accelerating? You're accelerating, and what's happening?
It's like the RPM.
Your tachometer?
I'm not sure, but whenever I do it, I accelerate, it jumps.
It jumps.
The vehicle does, and I don't know how to explain it, but like it'll jerk forward or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Now, can you drive it? Are you able to drive it normally when you're not accelerating? Can you actually drive this car, or is it just something that right now you can't drive it?
Well, I mean, I can drive it. I drove it yesterday.
Yeah.
It's an everyday driver,
Yeah.
but I mean,
So if you go out, you go and start the car up right now. You go fire the car up. It's cold outside. Will it start up and run?
yes, sir.
Okay. You put it in gear. You take off. Is there a check engine light on the car right now when you're driving it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's going to be the start. That check engine light's going to give me an idea. And if you can just come by here, I can take 5 minutes or so and give you an idea what's wrong with it. But that's what I would do right now. I need more information. That check engine light's going to give me some ideas what's wrong with it. But if you can drive the car carefully down here without getting in a wreck or causing any, getting yourself in trouble, drive it down here. I'll take 10 to 15 minutes, plug my scanner and say, look, here's the areas I see they're going to be, you got problems. You got a problem in your evap system. You got a problem in the fuel delivery system. I don't know. And I need an hour, 2 hours, whatever, to figure this out, and then we can go from there. Or I can say, hey, this is the area you need to check. Go home and check this area. This is a pretty common problem. I can do that for you. But I really can't tell you much more than what you're giving me unless you got a scanner and give me some codes or some more information. But if a car goes down the highway and it feels like it's holding back or doesn't want to accelerate, a lot of time that's due to fuel delivery. You're not getting enough fuel. And it's a 98, so we're talking about a 20-year-old car. So it's entirely possible your fuel pump may just be, getting old. I don't know. But Preston, just drive down here, take a few minutes time, get to meet me, and I'll point you in the right direction. How's that sound?
That sounds perfect.
All right. You come by here. We're open Monday through Friday. So you call my shop and make sure I'm here. Because if I'm not here, I'm not going to pull my guys out of the back to come and talk to you because they're busy back there making money. So come by here. I'll take a look at it. I'll take the time with you, and we'll point you in the right direction. Maybe it's something you can do. Maybe it's something I can do for you, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks for calling me, Preston. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right. If you got a call, you can call like Preston. Sometimes I don't know the answers. I am not the sharpest stick in the pile sometimes, but sometimes I amaze myself some of the answers I come up with. Go, dadgum, I forgot all about that. But I've been doing this since I've been working on cars for a living since I was 17. I've been working on cars because I enjoyed it since I was 13. I'm old enough to turn wrenches. So I guess I've been working on cars pretty much all my life. I'm 63 years old, so a long time. Long time, but I do enjoy every morning I wake up and I wonder, what am I going to learn today? What am I going to learn about a car? I tell you what, sometimes what I learn is frustrating as heck. It is. I had a car back there. We got it running, had a faulty computer. We said, okay, here's why the car won't start. We sent the computer off. They sent us back a computer. We programmed it. We got it running. It fires up every time like we're supposed to, except the check engine light was on. It wouldn't go out. I said, oh no, what's wrong now? Check it out. The computer I got is faulty. Can't give it to the customer. Okay, no big deal, James. Just chalk it up to experience. Trying to save the customer some money. We don't know to go buy that super duper expensive computer that's over $1,500 from the dealership that we don't want to buy that. Okay, so we take that computer, send it off. A week later, they bring it back. We get it. We put it in the car. We have to reprogram it again. Go through all the problem. Get everything where the theft light goes out. It doesn't see it's being, and it still won't start. I just scratch my head and go, I don't believe this. It's not even showing RPMs. So I'm going, so there's a possibility. I got to go out there and find out if we disconnected something or popped a fuse or whatever. But there's a strong possibility that this computer I stuck in, this new computer never ever worked. Is new, NEW, never ever worked. It may be this case, and so it's frustrating. Sometimes that can be so frustrating, and that's one thing about this business. But there's also, when you see, there's so much that's instantly gratifying. I hate to say that, but there's a lot of, I shouldn't say I hate it. I do like that. I like it when I can turn a key and a car starts. I do, especially when I'm trying. To me, that's instant gratification when that happens. You're going in the right direction. But sometimes you get some of those like, turn a key. The theft light went out this time. There's no code in there for being stolen, but there's no RPMs. The car doesn't seem being turned over. Do I have a blown fuse? My crank sensor decided to die on me? I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. But that's what this business is. It's never the same. It's always changing. It's always changing. I will tell you that there's nothing in this business that stays the same. The only thing that stays the same is the octane of gas, and that's not true either. It seems like that's constantly changing too. But yeah, speaking of octane, we were talking about on the other show about diesels. A lot of people, I talk about cetane booster. CETANE booster. Now, today's diesels out there, I know I'm kind of going back to diesels again. I was talking about out there. If you own a diesel engine, whether it's a Volkswagen, whether it's a Ford, Chevy, I don't care what kind of diesel engine, it's designed to run on a cetane rating of 46 or higher. Like octane, you have 87 octane for regular, mid-grade is 89, and high test is 91. Well, cetane is kind of like that. It's kind of like octane. You got to have, to make an engine run correctly and not carbon up and not cause a lot of problems and not make your catalytic converter or everything work a lot harder than it needs to be. Cetane booster is recommended to bring your cetane level and your fuel up from 39 to 40. That's what it is. 38 to 41 is what it is. When you go to the store, whether it's Chevron, BP, Exxon, it doesn't matter which one it is, your cetane rating is 41 at the most. I know. What? And the manufacturer calls for 46. Why is that? Well, they don't have to put it in. The manufacturer calls for it, but that doesn't mean it won't run on it. It'll run on 41, runs well. The problem is you end up making a lot of carbon. If you got an EGR system on it, it carbons up the exhaust gas recirculatory system. It does. That's why people take them off cars, because they get clogged up with soot. And they pay $1,000, $2,000 to get these systems removed. They call it bulletproof engine. All they got to do is put in 35 cents to 40 cents a tank full of cetane booster, and you won't have problems with the EGR valve sticking and getting stuck. If the only additive recommended to be put in any fuel out there, well, besides Techron, that goes in for the detergent additives, for gasoline engines, the only additive to be put in diesel fuel, let me make sure, is cetane booster. If you go to Volkswagen, they sell it. They sell it for their diesels. They sell a booster. If you go to Chevrolet, they sell a booster, cetane booster. Ford sells a cetane booster. Matter of fact, I've had people that say, when I first bought my diesel truck, the first tank of fuel was incredible. That thing would scream, got better fuel mileage, it was quiet, and then ever since then, my fuel wasn't quite the same. My truck didn't run quite the same. The reason is, when you bought that truck from Ford, it had 50 cetane rated fuel in it. That's what they come with. I know there's a few shops, heavy duty asphalt plants in this area, that their diesel fuel they buy in bulk, that they buy at 38 to 41, they have them boosted up to 46 or higher cetane. I think they're running 50 cetane. Over in Europe, they run 50 cetane. You can't buy diesel fuel without it being rated at 50. It's got 50 cetane rating in it over in Europe. We have a 38 to 41 cetane rating here in America. Hey, I don't make the rules, I just know how it works. And you can learn how to work around it too. So if you got a diesel and you want it to run better, and you want to get better fuel mileage, and you want to have less maintenance costs, and you just putt around town, that covers just about everybody listening to me out there, please put in cetane booster. You can buy a gallon jug for $15. I think you can buy it at the parts store for that. It's not very expensive, and it doesn't take but maybe a cup to a cup and a half for a 25-gallon tank of this additive to go in there before you fill it up. If you will do that, the engine will run quieter. It won't make so much cackling sound. You know what I'm talking about. If you got a diesel, it won't rattle so much because the flame front is more even. What you're hearing is a regular flame front. As it sprays the fuel down under high pressure, the flame is not an even flame front, so you get this cackling sound. You put in the cetane booster and it quiets the engine down. You get less smoke out the tailpipe because you got complete flame frontage. You got higher cetane rating, so you're able to cover more and you get better fuel mileage. You get more power, more performance, and you get less carbon buildup on the EGR system. I've had EGR systems, the passageways are, they're about that big on, say, a Volkswagen. That's a pretty good size, you know, about 1.5 inches to about 2-inch diameter. I've seen them clogged up with carbon where it had about that much coming through it. You could just barely see. I go, oh my Lord. So I have to go inside there and literally scrape that stuff out where I can get a cleaner inside there and gently let it clean over a couple hours of running. I'll just let it sit there and pulse and it'll clean that area up. See that a lot on Volkswagens. Oh, yes, a lot of TDIs out there because people don't use cetane booster. They don't do preventive maintenance, and at 100,000 miles, they come in and get their timing belt changed on it. I pull everything apart to get down the timing belt, look at it and go, holy moly, when was the last time someone had the intake cleaned on this thing? And they never have. And I asked the customer, I said, don't you use cetane booster? And they look at me like, what's cetane booster? I go, okay. Cetane booster is that thing that's inside your owner's manual that they recommend putting in your fuel, that if you'll read on it, they talk about fuel additives and talking about the minimum. You know, the owner's manual has some pretty good information in there. And one of the information is what you should be, if you got a diesel engine, what you should be running for cetane. And the minimum is 46. 46 cetane is the minimum they would prefer to see it run on. But you're buying 38 to 41 when you go to the filling stations out there. That's just the way it is. That's why a lot of diesel, that's why you see a lot of people that own diesel will put cetane booster in it. Not very expensive, but does a great job of keeping the soot down, keeping performance up, fuel mileage up, all these things. All these things just by doing a little bit of being proactive, you know, catching it before it gets bad. Now, it's like flossing your teeth every day and going to visit the dentist. You floss your teeth every day and go visit the dentist. Your teeth cleaning bill is about the same, but it doesn't take but 2 hours. It only takes 30 minutes to an hour. You get out of there a lot less pain. You know, it works fine. Well, it's the same thing with your car. You could not use cetane booster, and then you bring it to me, and then, you know, instead of me working an hour doing an oil change on it, maybe I got 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of work to clean things out and get it ready to go. I don't know. But you pay a little now, or you're going to pay a lot more later. It's your call. That's what I tell people out there. A little now or more later. So it's like that old Fram commercial, you know. You know, pay a little more, or or have to pay a lot more later when you don't do the maintenance correctly. Cetane booster is very, very important. If you're not using cetane booster and you have a diesel, shame, shame, shame. You really should be. It's not expensive. It's a very good preventive maintenance, and it'll make your truck run like it's supposed to run. Yeah, it'll make it have more power, better fuel mileage, better performance. All that for just a few extra pennies. You know, diesel fuel runs around $4 a gallon, and you need if you want to pick up a mile to a mile and a half to a gallon, that's the best place I'd start, something as simple as that. Hey, this is James Morris. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Thanks, everybody.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers. Thank you.
Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Guaranteed, beep, 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 yeah. Guaranteed, beep, 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 yeah.